Dominic, it's not just an issue of lifting out people of poverty. I think the real challenge is afterwards to integrate them into a prosperous middle class, because that's what creates stability for society. Now, what is the key? You have talked about the potential, or many people have talked about the potential and the size of Africa's middle class in 2020. There's quite some excitement. But what are really the challenges in order to achieve a middle class-based society?
Well, I think the core element actually comes back to the key theme of the conference and something that you've been pushing a lot, which is around job creation. We can't have a middle class unless we get enough of the job creation. And as President Jonathan mentioned in his speech, we are going to have to create jobs for 120 million people over the next 10 years. That's a tremendous opportunity because that's going to be a big consuming class, but they're going to need to have the jobs to be able to drive it forward. Already in many countries in Africa, it represents one of the largest consumption markets. If you are in the healthcare business, if you're in the diaper business, you have to be in Nigeria. As I said before, there are more babies born in this country than all of Europe combined. So if you want to be a relevant international company, you better be in this country now, not just in the future. But if we go back to how do we create the jobs and so forth, I think there's a number of elements that have to come into place. One is actually around the sector focus, again, which President Jonathan mentioned. There are huge opportunities well beyond the natural resource side of things, and ag food has been talked about. President Kagame's done a lot. A number of Ethiopia, what they're doing on that side, there are a huge number of jobs and businesses that can be created by building out that sector, making it a priority. The second is infrastructure. We're going to need $2.6 trillion of infrastructure. Infrastructure creates jobs. For basically every 100 billion of infrastructure you put in, you create 1 million jobs. And that's a win-win, if you will, in terms of where we drive it. So working the system to be able to enable infrastructure to be built quickly, I think will help drive it through. So these sectors, and healthcare is another one, there's a number of them to focus on, which will, I think, create a very vibrant workforce and therefore the middle class. The other areas I just focus on is vocational training. I think we focus too much on university education. What we need more of are the welders, the electricians, the plumbers, nurses, radiologists, and so forth. And that's an area we need to build out. It's education for employment. We've done surveys actually in Nigeria, in Kenya, in South Africa. We found that employers believe that the people coming out of the system that are graduating only have 30% of the skills that are required to be able to do what they need to do. So we have to think about that education for employment to ensure they're there. And then the final area I just want to talk about is the speed with which one's able to create businesses. A lot of the middle class are entrepreneurs. They're the SME individuals. And I'd actually look again to Rwanda as an example. I believe it was the case in 2009. If you wanted to start a business, it would take you 6 weeks. It would cost you the equivalent of $400, and you have to talk to 10 different ministries to be able to do it. If you look at it today, basically it takes you 6 hours, and there's one website. If you use the website, it's free. If you go physically, it's $20. And so the ability to be able to allow people to build businesses and grow is going to be a key part of this. And then I think Africa, which already is seen as, again, an important market, as I mentioned before, on the consumer side, will be an extremely important market on the broad middle-class consumer side as those people have jobs.
Would you just one follow-up question? Would you agree that Africa, and particularly also Nigeria, are characterized by strong entrepreneurial talents? At least my experience looking at our young global leaders and so on, I'm amazed how many entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs I find here, despite the not so favorable environment sometimes.
I totally agree. In fact, many of them are out in the room here, and I'd certainly say there's a large number, and I would argue there's the future global champions are sitting here. I'm sitting beside one to my left as we talk. But we're also talking about innovators, because even in banking, we're seeing radically new models. When you can leapfrog, we're actually going to see a lot more innovator entrepreneurs that are here.
Please let's give a big hand to the African entrepreneurs here in the room. Aliko, you are one of those entrepreneurs, and if I look at our competitiveness ranking, the African countries, I would say, are not amongst the top countries. How do you succeed in such an environment? What is your recipe? Can you share with us?
Well, that's secret.
Because I'm sure we all want to imitate you and to do the same as you have done.
Well, definitely, yes, you are right. It is not, well, first of all, Your Excellencies, Professor Schwab, other distinguished participants. It is a great pleasure to be here. And I think when you look at, yes, people keep talking about only the bad side, which is very difficult to do business. But there are a lot of opportunities. I mean, when we first started as a company, we were not really spoon-fed. To start with, I remember when we decided to go into manufacturing. This was around 1996, but at around 2003, when we realized that Nigeria is only, 2004, Nigeria was only producing 2 million tons of cement. And we really wanted to have a massive trajectory. How are we going to get over it? And the banks at that time, they were very small. And you won't believe that at that time, we even paid interest up to 42%. And the only money that we could get was 90 days money for long-term investment. But we were very, very creative. We didn't really say, yes, there is no power, there's no this, there's no that. And we went ahead. The first thing that we did was to decide not to use power from the national grid. And that is one of our successes, really. We said that we're not really going to use power from the national grid. We want to make sure that, we have, reliance on power. And what we did was to create our own power. We had to do about 92 kilometers of gas pipeline. We had to build housing estate. We had to do quite a lot. But going back, even this morning during the press conference, a lot of people say that no, the environment is not conducive to do business. I totally disagree. It's not true. We also have to look at this. The only job for government is to give us the enabling environment. Okay, fine. For example, in Nigeria and a lot of other African countries, they will give you an opportunity for capital allowance. They will give you an opportunity of zero duty and zero VAT on all your machinery because you are creating jobs. They will also give you 5 years of tax holiday. And even in tax holiday, you can choose when you want to start your tax period. If you think that your volume is low, you can start paying by, your tax and then, start, enjoying your tax holiday the following year. I mean, I don't really know what somebody is going to look for apart from this. So we've used that and we went ahead and risk and invest a lot of our money. The biggest challenge that we are facing today is that some of us here in Africa will rather keep the money abroad, not invest in Africa. And by doing that, you are not creating confidence. You have to invest your own money as an African to create confidence for the foreigners to bring in their money. Unless you do that, it's not just going to happen. I mean, the size of company that we're in today, even 5 years or 7 years away, we never ever expected to be this big. But the opportunities are there, and they're enormous. I mean, for example, today we've reached a stage that was okay, fine, but where are we going from here? And we're investing total of $16 billion in the next 4 years to create a lot of businesses, in refinery, petrochemical, to make Nigeria self-sufficient in fertilizer. We're doing a fertilizer plant, which is done by about 2.8 million tons, which is more than what Nigeria requires, which will export. But the most important of our business today is the agricultural side of it, which we were not in before. And what we are doing right now, we are partnering with the, with the Ministry of Agriculture to do 1 million tons of, rice. We already have gotten a letter that yes, there is land available in Niger State and also land available in Edo State, which we have 160,000, the other one have been 64,000. In sugar, what we have done and through Ministry of Trade, Industry and Investment is to now go ahead to go to most of the areas where, for example, we are even in the Northeast. We are in Adama, where there is Boko Haram. The only way to solve Boko Haram is to create jobs. And that's, so we decided to invest total of $2 billion in sugar alone by making Nigeria self-sufficient in sugar. And we are going to about 6 states. From the northeast, we are going to Taraba and Adama. Northwest, we are going to Kebbi, Sokoto, and Jigawa. And then north central, we are going to Kogi and Kwara. But when you look at all this, what will this do after we finish investing both the rice and this is, we are going to have an opportunity to create 180,000 jobs. So is government doing something? Of course, government is doing quite a lot. If the environment is not conducive, how am I going to just go and put in my money and also borrow additional money to invest an area which I've never ever dreamt about, which is agriculture? We're pumping in 2.3 billion. So the opportunities are there. And the only thing that I have to now, tell all of us here is that today, the inter-trade of Africa is actually just about, as of 2012, is about $100 billion only. And $100 billion is less than 15% of the total trade that is happening within Africa. Less than 15%. In Asia Pacific, it's about 40%. Western Europe is about 60%. So we have to learn to trade among ourselves, because what is happening is that majority of what we are consuming, we are importing. And you know what that means? Once you import, it means that you are importing poverty, exporting jobs out. So I think that's what we need to look at. Thank you.